Now, the future of Carlos Tevez still remains uncertain as Manchester United and the players' advisors continue to wrangle over a permanent deal for the Argentine. Joining us from our central London studio is sports lawyer Jamie Singh. Good morning, Jamie. Thanks for joining us. What is the difference then to being owned by a company as opposed to being owned by a football club?
Well, it's the first time this has really happened. The difference is that with a football club, your employment contract is going to expire at the end of the period you play for the club. And then under the new Bosman ruling, you're free. The club can no longer hold your registration and can no longer trade you. The situation we have with Carlos Tevez and being owned by a company is we don't actually know what the terms of his contract are, and we don't know how long it might continue for.
It seems incredibly lucrative, doesn't it? I mean, why don't we all go down to Hackney Marshes this Sunday and find a player that looks good and sign him up?
It does. I mean, it is very lucrative. The situation is that the Premier League realises the problems it's caused, and particularly the issues over the last few years with West Ham and Sheffield United. And the Premier rules have changed. So in the UK, it's no longer going to be possible to have these deals in place where players are actually owned by a third party. And so the situation that Manchester United have, where they loan him from this company, won't be able to continue at the end of this period.
We've been scanning through some of the morning papers. In The Sun, there's a report that Tevez's contract could be worthless under European law because essentially it's an employment contract, so Tevez can break it if he wants to.
That's something that Tevez's lawyers are going to have to look at. It's possible that there could be a restraint of trade. That was the principle under which the Bosman ruling came into being and stopped clubs being able to control a registration. And if his contract is very onerous and he is prevented from plying his trade as a footballer, then perhaps it is a restraint of trade and perhaps it will be void. But that's something that it's difficult to speculate on without seeing Tevez's contract.
Yeah, from what we know of the contract, will he always be owned by this, or is it something that has an expiration date?
As we understand, we don't actually know the specifics of that contract, but certainly in South America, the way they've worked them in the past is that they are very long-term deals in return for investing in players when they're very young with very little money, taking them off the streets and owning rights in them for an exceptionally long period of time. So it could be the span of his entire career.
What about what the player wants? So you talked about the Tevez contract and these other contracts that might be similar in South America. As far as what Carlos Tevez wants, it doesn't seem to be that important in all this.
No, I mean, from what we read, Carlos Tevez wants to continue playing for Manchester United. And he has a difficult situation where usually his agent actually works for him and does what he's told. In the situation that Tevez has, his agent actually owns his economic rights and wants to make as much money out of Tevez as possible. So Tevez's interests are secondary to his agents in this scenario.
And how does the contract restrict Manchester United?
Well, the contract that Manchester United has is a loan agreement with the company. And that contract ends at the end of this year, so they have no further rights to Tevez at the end of that period.
It's a terrible mess, isn't it? I mean, you would have thought the Premier League would be hoping to make sure this doesn't happen again.
It is a terrible mess, and I think the Premier League have taken action after the saga with West Ham a year or so ago to ensure it won't happen again. And this situation with third parties owning players cannot happen in the Premier League going forward. We're seeing the tail end of the issues caused by this saga now.
Jamie, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.